Let's discuss the fourth part of constructivism 2, which deals with Brunner's idea of teaching and how teaching influences learning. We have discussed the contributions made by Jerome Brunner in the field of education. Although his contributions in the area of cognitive sciences are highly well known, but it is the contribution that he has made in the area of education which have been in practice and which have been adopted by a lot of educationists as well as different scientists and researchers. So his major contributions in the field of education include the modes of representation that we have discussed, enactive, iconic, and symbolic, the importance of teaching and learning, that the role of the teacher and the role of the learner. And then after having the understanding, there has to be a specific, dynamic, and relevant mechanism in order to have a successful teaching and learning mechanism. The spiral curriculum, starting with the simplest level, moving on to the complex level of learning. And fourth is learning through acts of discovery by engaging learner in a process of discovery and inquiry, whereby they can question the information available. We are going to show you a video where you will see Brunner himself talking about how teaching influences learning and what are his views on this particular concept.
I'm Jerome Brunner, and this man has come to interview me about what the effects of teaching are, what can teaching do for a learner, and I'm about to tell him that the main thing about teaching is that it opens up a wider range of possibility of what's possible. You teach them about something in the past or the present, but you hope that your teaching will have the good effect of leading them into the world of possibility. That's where intelligence lies. And it's a risky kind of a business, because the fact of the matter is, when people tell you about ask you about teaching and you say it's about the future, they'll say, oh, but that's too speculative. But that's what teaching should be for, to get you speculating about possibility. We mostly, particularly in the Western world, we like people to stick to the factual, to what goes on now. And I say the main object of teaching and educating is get them to think and share their notions about where this leads, to go beyond the information given. As I think I once titled a book or something like that, yeah. So comes the question, are there rules of education? Yeah, they're pretty general rules of computation, but they should be related to some general domain of knowing, knowledge, and that kind of thing. It should not let you sit where you are. I keep using that expression, going beyond the information given. And that's what it's about. And eventually, we teach in a fashion that leads the person himself to learn how to converse with others, to share with others in a way that opens the world. It's an opening type of operation. And that's one of the reasons why, if it's only about the past, as some rather old-fashioned historians used to think, it gets you nowhere. Back to the past. And the way our schools developed in the old-fashioned way was to think that they were the repository of stored knowledge to pass on to new pupils. You can get that better out of a book in some respects, but it's the business of going beyond, something like that. So I ask you, why are you doing this? What do you hope it will lead people who listen to get out of it? And I won't press you for an answer because you're supposed to be interviewing me, not me interviewing you. But on the other hand, it's also impossible for somebody to interview somebody else without their interviewing them back. It's opening possibility. I keep coming back to that word, possibility, and with good reason. What is culture? Culture is a way of knowing, basically. It's a way of knowing that relates to the constraints imposed by a certain way of life. That is to say, we are both individuals and we live in a culture. And we somehow maintain our individuality and at the same time become New Yorkers or Americans or Russians and live that way. So it's a back and forth between the possible and the actual, and learning how to make that leap. Not only learning how, but learning that it's necessary to do it, to use your being to its fullest extent.
Let's discuss some of the key points that you have noticed in his interview. They are: intelligence exists in the world of possibilities. We have seen that Brunner keeps on emphasizing possibility or possibilities. Now, according to him, that the process, learning, teaching, should be such which should provide the learner with possibilities and opportunities where the intelligence can be completely utilized. Getting a learner speculating just in terms of providing information to a learner and expecting them to grow is not enough. We should, or the educators, a teaching process should be such which should enable learner to speculate, to think, and going beyond the information given. That is, that instead of relying on the piece of information which is given to a learner to understand, the learner should be encouraged to go beyond and see what else can be possible, what else lies ahead. Sticking to past gets you nowhere. So just the information which has already taken place in the past and knowing that is not sufficient. It is about moving ahead. That is what he emphasizes. He also thinks that old traditional schools do not encourage inquiry. They want their learners to follow strict instructions and guidelines, which discourages a concept of inquiry. According to Brunner, human mind is such who, once given the stimulation, should be able to be engaged in a process of inquiry that can lead to a meaningful discovery and learning of new experiences. He emphasized possibility, and he says that he had very valid reason for that. He thinks that learning a culture is about a way of knowing the constraints, and the constraints in terms of you as an individual have your own specific characteristics. That is there, but then you belonging to a community or a member of a group is having some kind of responsibility in itself, and knowing these differences and yet moving ahead is what he emphasized. These are the constraints, but these constraints should be able to facilitate the learning process. Knowing what is possible and what is actual. So actual is something which is there, which exists, but exploring further to see what is possible is something which should be a matter of concern for the educators. And in the end, he encourages that the process should enable learners, and the learners should be able to learn to make a leap, which is to drive himself or herself forward, or to push himself or herself forward for new discoveries, acquiring new set of experiences, and constructing knowledge based on that.